They seem to happen a lot, and you'll get the whole adage of this is the greatest upset ever. Last night, people are losing their mind because you had one big so-called upset. I don't really think it was that big of a deal, but you did have Tennessee get the win last night.
Chandler will come across the line. He'll just dribble the clock out, and now Tennessee is going to savor the last 10 seconds of this big win over the Kentucky Wildcats. Final score from Thompson Bowling Arena: Tennessee 76 and Kentucky 63.
So Tennessee wins last night, and everybody's talking about, oh, that's a big upset. I started thinking about it. What are some of the biggest upsets that I can remember? And I tell you what, last night, buzzer beaters, upsets, etc. South Carolina with a big buzzer beater last night to win 2 games in a row in conference play. And South Carolina went from looking like, man, they're in trouble to, could they sneak into the tournament? I don't know. There's definitely that. But getting back to the greatest upsets, one of the biggest upsets that comes to my mind that I remember is I had just really started working in radio, and it was App State going up to Michigan and winning there. No one gave App State a snowball's chance in Hades of winning anything up there. They were a great team with Michigan, allegedly, even though they didn't really finish with that great of a record. I think they went in as the number 4 team in the country. And App State, by the way, if you watch them with Armani Edwards and all that, they were the best team at the FCS level. And I think back on that, and I just remember feeling like, man, there's no way App State's going to win this game. And then they did. And then you can still drive around Boone, North Carolina today, and they still have We Beat Michigan t-shirts. So I remember that one. That one kind of sticks with me a little bit. Mikkel online says, 2010 Alabama at South Carolina, the best and biggest upset ever. That was a big upset. You're right. You're absolutely right with that. But I can think of others. It's easy to say the Soviets losing to the Americans at Lake Placid with Al Michaels' absolutely great call. But I go back to boxing. And I remember growing up as a kid that Mike Tyson was the absolute baddest man on the planet. And he goes over to Tokyo and he doesn't take into account how good that Buster Douglas was. And Tyson went over there and got beat. He got beat by Buster Douglas. Buster Douglas was like a 40-1 underdog, something like that. And he goes out and loses. Then you hear all the excuses that come afterwards, but Tyson did say, hey, he beat me that day. But it comes back to this, though. No one saw that upset coming, period. No one thought Buster Douglas had a chance in the world of knocking out Mike Tyson, the baddest man on the planet. So anyway, I thought we'd share that today. And, I heard this call last night.
Chandler will come across the line. He'll just dribble the clock out, and now Tennessee is going to savor the last 10 seconds of this big win over the Kentucky Wildcats. Final score from Thompson Bowling Arena: Tennessee 76 and Kentucky 63.
Yeah, you hear that, and it sounds great. But in the end, I mean, it's an upset in theory, but not on the line of big, huge upsets. Jetmax says, yeah, do you believe in miracles? Yeah, that's definitely one of them. But I thought we'd throw out there and see what you thought was the biggest upset. For me, it's Tyson and Douglas, followed up by App State going to Michigan and winning there. Now, there's other games and things that losses that you didn't see coming. Nick Saban dropping a game to some school, LSU losing to Troy. For Clemson fans, going to Duke and losing at Duke on a 50-yard field goal. Thanks, Tommy Bowden. You mentioned that. That's what Clemson fans will tell you. So there's that. All kinds of interesting upsets I kind of wanted to bring to the program today. 803-978-1019 1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to dial if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Of course, we could talk a little bit about what we talked about yesterday with who's going to be the threat to knock off Georgia or Alabama. There's a handful of teams that are definitely in the mix. Allen says 4 turnovers, South Carolina beats UGA. Yeah, that was considered a big upset. South Carolina was like a 23-point dog at the, I believe it was, on game day. And if you're a Gamecock fan, you went into that thinking there's not a chance we're winning this game. You know who picked that game, though, up front? And I think we talked about this on the air. A friend of the program, LaVon Kirkland, he actually came on the air with us and said South Carolina has the tools to beat Georgia. We thought he was just being polite. And he even mentioned the secondary for South Carolina could be a problem for Jake Fromm. And sure enough, they were a problem for Jake Fromm. So, yeah, there's that. Papa Blake with a good point. The biggest upset last year was Kansas beating Texas. See, when you see stuff like that and you hear people in there, they're like, hey, maybe Texas this year can be one of those teams that could slip past it and do something next year. You lost to Kansas last year. Forgive me if I'm not riding the Texas train. Jet Mech with another one. Clemson's upset at Syracuse. Yeah, Syracuse came out and, Clemson had some issues with their quarterback. And Syracuse didn't care. They came out and beat Clemson. They certainly did. So, yeah, there's some upsets that are right there. You could talk about on the other end. I remember, as I said, Clemson losing to Duke, 50-yard field goal at the buzzer or at the horn, whatever it is you call it in college football at the very end of the game. That one, I can remember South Carolina losing to the Citadel. Though, you thought South Carolina's going to roll in that game. Not so much. Not so much. Anyway, I just thought we'd have some fun with some upset stuff today. Western Michigan beating Pitt. I don't know, man. Was that really an upset? I don't remember what. See, for me, it's like point spread and recognition. We all thought that Mike Tyson was the baddest man on the planet. Were we really sold on Pitt yet? That is a good point. Pitt ended up being the ACC champion. Jacob's right. App State over Michigan. We talked about that. And I think that's, for football, that's one of the biggest in my opinion. I can remember a New York Giants team going into Green Bay. Green Bay was like 14-2. And Michael Strahan and those guys went up to Green Bay and lost or beat them. Beat Brett Favre and everybody. I remember that game. That was like, you're looking at that from the perspective of, wow, what a mess. Some other upsets that we can probably throw into the mix here. And I just thought this would be just kind of a little fun today. But Mike Tyson stands out on top. And I've got some other ones here that I'm bringing up in my notes. But you got to put the U.S. hockey team that's in the mix. Okay, here we go. Let's see here. You could talk about VCU in the 2011 NCAA basketball tournament. The Jayhawks, the number 1 seed, left in the tournament. The only one that was left. They were about to take on VCU, who came in, shocked the world, and they beat the Jayhawks 71-61. I remember that. And people didn't know where VCU was. People had no clue. So college basketball, the tournament's great for that kind of thing. It really is. We mentioned the U.S. hockey team. And if you go back and you research some of that, and not just go and watch the Disney version of the movie, but go back and actually look at it, and you see how big and just smashing that Russian team was. And they're playing a bunch of college kids. and they ended up winning. I mean, the college kids brought it to them. We mentioned Tyson Douglas. The game in 2007 we talked about. The horse that was named Upset, going up against Man of War and many other horses at the Sanford Memorial Stakes in the early 1900s. Upset was given 100 to 1 odds. Man of War never lost a race in his career. Upset's nose crossed the line before any of the other horses. A horse named Upset gets the win. That was kind of some cool stuff there. Yeah, I can remember South Carolina and Clemson being favored big in the tournament. One lost to Richmond, one lost to Coppin State. Those are tough. Jetmex says 1996 Arizona State beating Nebraska. Yeah, that's in the mix there too. NC State Wolfpack taking down Akeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler, and the Houston Cougars in '83. One of the biggest moments in upset history. Jim Valvano had his team marching into the championship game with a tough road ahead of them. They came out and they fought it out on the road. They won 54-52. Papa Blake says East Tennessee State beating Vanderbilt last year. Papa Blake's having fun now. Yeah, UMBC. Yeah, that was one of those big ones too. Definitely with you on that. Anyway, we'll take your biggest upsets at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. I got one more in boxing. George Foreman, 45 years old, went up against heavyweight champion Michael Moore in 1994 and won the match in 10 rounds. But he goes out there at 45 and wins the heavyweight title. Justin says Memphis beating Mississippi State last year. Yeah, SEC Dog's right. Louisiana Monroe winning over Alabama with Nick Saban as their head coach. Alabama fans kind of forget, like before Nick Saban, they had a set there where they just weren't very good. They don't like to talk about those days. Right now, they're one of the best programs in football. And every year they're in the top 5, but I remember the days of Derek Lassick and all those guys, and Alabama wasn't that good. They really weren't. Hiring a coach that ended up being a complete buffoon, all of that. So it's kind of fun to look back at history. Little walk in history today here on the Rundown. By the way, the Rundown is brought to you by Mazda of Columbia. Go and get yourself a car, MazdaofColumbia.com. Listen to the Mazda of Columbia podcast, however you get your favorite podcast. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number to dial if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown. Talking upsets today. Biggest upset that you remember. Benji says September 19th, 1987 in Death Valley. He's got to help me with that one a little bit. Daniel says 90% of Alabama fans weren't around prior to 2009. Is he calling the Bama fans front runners? It seems like they forget that there was a time after Gene Stallings and before Nick Saban. They just want those two eras to run together. So there's that. 16 seed beating Baylor. I can't remember who it was. So that one didn't stick with me anymore. So maybe not so much. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you'd like to join us here on the Rundown. Talking biggest upsets you remember. Let's take a call really quick here. Welcome into the Rundown. Good afternoon.
Hello, Rob. It's Bobby and KC. How are you doing?
Hey, Bobby. How are you?
January 1st, 1984 in the Orange Bowl. University of Miami 31, Nebraska 30. How about Miami beating the greatest college football team of all time? Think about it.
Yeah, but do you remember the point spread on that game? Because I
had no idea.
I was
only a 20-year-old boy in college, and that point spreads didn't mean nothing to me way back then.
I just wonder how big of a favorite Nebraska was in that matchup.
Nope.
I mean, everybody thought they were
ranked 5th, and they leapfrogged all the way to 1 because the other 3 teams ahead of them lost that night.
Yeah, but is it really that big of an upset if you're a top 5 team and you beat the team that's number 1?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it is, because for someone living in Miami, seeing how all the other teams had to lose in front of them, and there was no true national championship like there is now in college football. living there, it's like unbelievable it was done. I mean, that's all I got to say. I mean, just Auburn. I went to high school with someone who kicked those 3 field goals that night. Auburn beat Michigan 9-7. Aldo Greco, he was 2 classes ahead of me, beat Michigan in the Sugar Bowl, and I forget the other 2 teams that lost. So, I mean, that was a big miracle. I was alive for that, and of course, I was in high school, and I saw the miracle on ice when USA beat the Soviet Union 4-3, then won the gold. But for us, yeah, how this man Howard Schnellenberger, Don Shula's offensive coordinator, came and took that team, which was a toilet team all through the 70s. No one went into stadium. They hadn't been good since George Myra Sr. in the 60s. I mean, who would want to come to Miami? It was a privileged white Yankee white boy school. All the kids from up north and the Northeast came and partied.
Yeah.
And suddenly here they were. Lou Saban, Nick's distant cousin, made them something. Then Schnellenberger came over from the Dolphins, and they won it all, just like that. That was a miracle. I mean, if you want to bring up miracles, and yes, I am biased. I was born and raised there.
Yeah.
So take care. Have a good day.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot. Yeah, bringing some good stuff there to the program. And sometimes an upset will mean more to you than it means to the rest of the country. You know, I mean, the South Carolina win over Georgia is big for Gamecock fans, but in the end, it's like, okay, it's a regular season game. But I'm talking about upsets that just stick forever. Tyson and Douglas, the Soviets losing to the Americans, things like that. All right, quick break. When we come back, we'll have more for you here on the Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Be right back, guys. I remember that too. That's some good stuff there. Yeah, Tyson was. Daniel, you're correct about that. We can pick on Florida losing to Georgia Southern. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400, brought to you by Mazda of Columbia, MazdaofColumbia.com. Let's just talk some college football upsets for just a moment. I think the biggest one, as we said, is App State and Michigan, as App State wins 34-32. Best stat line from that game, though, is that App State left with $400,000. Here's $400,000 to come up here and kick our butt. Here, take that back with you to the mountains and in Boone. You're on the plane for that one. You're laughing all the way there. So a couple of other big ones here that I found on a list earlier today that are kind of up there a little bit. Howard versus UNLV, September 2nd of 2017. UNLV was favored so much Vegas didn't have much of a point spread on it, but some betting agencies listed UNLV as a 45-point favorite over Howard, who received $600,000 to play UNLV. Kalen Newton, Cam Newton's younger brother, steps up to the plate. I say steps up to the plate, comes in and hung 43 on them as Howard wins over UNLV. That's a big one. This one's from a long time ago. Carnegie Tech, I don't even know if that's a school, but they went over Notre Dame in 1926, 19-0. Think about that for a minute. This was a big game. I remember this too. James Madison winning over Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech ranked in the number 10 in the country, favorite to win the ACC, and they lose to James Madison 21-16 in 2010. That's definitely there. Virginia Tech, by the way, also lost to Temple in 1998 as they lose 28-24. Temple was 0-26 in Big East road games. Wrap your heads around that. 0-26 in Big East road games and 1-6 overall. Virginia Tech was up 17-0 in the first, and they lose 28-24. Oof. That's tough. Navy winning over Notre Dame in 2007, 46-44. Service academies, though, they're always tough to beat, man. Always. In the last 25 years, some of the biggest upsets as far as point spreads go. Stanford was a 40.5-point favorite over Southern Cal in 2007. They win that matchup. Syracuse was plus 37 over Louisville. Crazy. They win by 3, 38-35. Temple was a 35.5-point favorite in that matchup and the underdog, and they win by 4 over Virginia Tech. Texas State Bobcats. I don't even know where that is. They went over Houston. They were a 35-point dog. Let's go out to the phones, 803-978-1832. Welcome into the program. Good afternoon.
Hey, Big Barney Ross here. I just wanted to say that the greatest upset has got to be the 1985 Chicago Bears losing to the Dolphins, or the Snake losing to Kentucky this year. You could decide, but I'll get off here and listen to your reaction to that.
Thank you for that. Kentucky did have a problem with the Snake this year. You're right about that. Big Barney Ross always brings good stuff to the program. But yeah, that game against Miami, they were doing the Super Bowl shuffle and everything else, and then they lost. They lost. What a great Bears team that was. A couple of other big-time upsets. Central Michigan, a 34.5-point underdog to Western Michigan. They win 21-17. Baylor in 2017 was a 34-point favorite over Liberty. They lose 48-45. Man, that one stinks for the Baylor fans. Oof. We mentioned James Madison. App State was plus 33 over Michigan. And North Texas was a 32-point favorite over Texas Tech. They win by 3, 30-27. All right, so we'll take your comments on upsets or games that you thought, all right, we're going to win this game, and then you kind of lose it. You're like, huh? How did that happen? You walk into the stadium thinking, man, we should be a team that rolls here, and then you don't. It's a very empty feeling when you're a fan. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. That is the number for the rundown. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. We'll be right back. Baylor, man, you were at that game? Sorry about that, brother. I wasn't trying to rub your nose in it. That's a good one, Tennille. I like it. Welcome back to the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400, of course, brought to you by Mazda of Columbia. Go to mazdaofcolumbia.com. Let's head out to the phones, talking about your biggest upset. Welcome into the program. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob, this is Dan. How are you?
Dan, what you got for the program, man?
Excellent. So, listen, I'm a Georgia fan, and I just remember when we talk about upsets, I mean, the Auburn and Georgia games always come to mind on those kind of discussions. And
Right.
I remember in 2006, Georgia was like 6-4. Auburn was 9-1. We stunk. I mean, we lost to Vanderbilt, Kentucky that year. We were awful. And I remember we played Auburn in Auburn, and it was like a noon game. And I was sitting at the TV with my buddy. We were like, "Oh God, Auburn's going to kick the shit out of us." And we ended up like intercepting them. Oh, excuse me.
Bro, be careful with that. All right, go ahead.
We beat them. We thought they were going to beat the what out of us. And so.
Right.
Anyway, so we end up jumping up like 30-7 on them at the half, and like we just completely beat the brakes off of them in their own place. And it was like Matthew Stafford just came alive. It was just crazy. It was one of those games where I just went from like, oh God, we're going to get killed, to we end up killing them, and it was the biggest surprise I experienced in a while.
Yeah, that's that. When you think back on that one, yeah, I remember that Georgia team was not very good. Not to rip your team there, but you probably went into it thinking you didn't have a chance in there, and then you went and won that game. So, yeah, big time upset there.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I apologize for cussing on your show.
Oh, don't worry about it. I caught you, man. Thank you. All right, have a good day. All right, let's go back out. One more call. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
I hear all these guys talking about greatest upsets and all this crap. Listen, the greatest upset was Ohio State beating Miami for the national championship.
Yeah. Miami fans will claim that they cheated. Are you buying into that?
No, they got beat.
Okay. At least we agree on something there, buddy. Yeah, that was a big upset. I remember that.
No doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Miami got off the plane knowing they was going to win a national championship. It didn't happen.
Well, that's a good pick there. Hey, man, thank you for calling the show. I appreciate it.
That's what I do. Make good picks. Don't forget it.
You're 1-14 with Georgia this year, but you're solid, brother.
That's last year, buddy. It's a whole new year.
Whole new year. All right. Well, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
All
right. Got to give him some credit for calling in. When you get popped in the face that much and he still calls back. Gotta love Hollywood calling the program. 803-978-1832. Edwin says Louisiana Monroe beaten Arkansas in 2012. Yeah, that's a good one. Baylor man says Ohio State got a whole bunch of calls that game, and he says he's neutral. Ohio State fans, man, they don't. The only time you hear about them talking about officiating was what was it, the game 2 years ago with Clemson. Then they tried to pour mouth and say Clemson got all the calls, and just stop it. Stop it. 803-978-1832 if you want to talk about your biggest upset that you remember as a sports fan. Tyson Douglas, I think, is one of the biggest, just because the mindset we had that Tyson was just so unbeatable. And he's knocking guys out. People buy the fight, go to the bathroom, and come back, and he's already knocked somebody out. I remember that was it a 19-second fight or whatever with him? He was just so dynamic. Then you hear the behind-the-scenes stuff about how he didn't really train for Douglas, didn't watch the film, was out till 3 a.m. that night, had an STD when he's trying to fight, not working on it. But yeah, it's I think it's still one of the greatest upsets ever. 803-978-1832. We'll take your calls on that this afternoon. Also, I want to talk a little bit about some quarterback battles that are in the SEC. And we'll start with some of these. And it's like, I think there's going to be like 5 or 6 different spots where you're going to look at it from a perspective of they're going to have a new quarterback. I don't think there's going to be issues with Alabama. They have Bryce Young. Arkansas's got KJ Jefferson. Georgia, I think they're going to roll with Stetson Bennett. Kentucky's got Will Levis. LSU's got Miles Brennan. Mississippi State's got Will Rogers. South Carolina's got Spencer Rattler. And Tennessee's got Hendon Hooker. Now, across the rest of the conference, you can make an argument there are some quarterback battles. Auburn, which way are they going to go? I mean, I feel like every time, and we've talked about this, I want to play the gong every time I think about Auburn because they've kind of fallen from the ranks of the high there. But they've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys in the mix. The big names are TJ Finley and Zach Calzada. Both of those guys transferring into the program thinking, hey, I'm going to get a chance to play. And we'll see how that works out for them. Finley's already played a bit. Zach Calzada won over Alabama last season. I think if I were to make a good pick there, I'd probably go with Calzada and see what happens. With Florida, you've got Anthony Richardson, Emory Jones, and then you got a bunch of guys that are underclassmen. When I look at that, I think that Emory Jones I think you have a bigger risk reward with Anthony Richardson. If you can get him to not throw as many interceptions, which I know sounds like it's childish, but if you can get him to cut down on the interceptions and just be more of a guy that, yeah, we want you to make some great plays, but make them and not, what was it? Dusty Rhodes says, do more of what you do good and less of what you do bad. It's kind of the easy way to look at it. But I think Anthony Richardson, that's the story with him. And if I were to pick there, I would go with Richardson. Mizzou, I've got a feeling about Mizzou. I don't think Mizzou's going to be a team that's going to be outstanding. But I tell you what, they could be a team that wins 7 or 8 games if they go out and they get JT Daniels out of the transfer portal. If you're looking at what they've got right now, they've got Brady Cook, who played in the bowl game, Tyler Macon, who's kind of and Sam Horn, who's a guy that is a projected baseball player, but is going to come in and possibly play some quarterback for them. Now, I know everyone's looking at Luther Bolden, but if I'm really stepping back and thinking about it, if they had JT Daniels and Daniels gets over whatever it was that was bothering him at Georgia, and we don't know, we weren't in the locker room, you can't mock Kirby Smart about it because he made the right decision and had the quarterback that won the national title. So it's kind of, you got to deal with that. But they don't have Connor Bazelak anymore, who at one point we thought was steady. In fact, I have no problem going to the bookcase of accountability and saying I thought Connor Bazelak was going to be the second best quarterback in the SEC East last season. And he made me look stupid. Let's go back out to the phones. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, it's Jason.
Jason, what's up, man?
Hey, what do you think about the 2003 Pistons over the Lakers as far as greatest upsets?
That was good. The team with Ben Wallace and all those guys. Yeah, that was pretty good. That was close.
Yeah, I was just trying to think of one that I actually watched. That was one that came to mind. So I'll hang up and listen.
Hey, man, appreciate it. Yeah, that one was a big one. You got to remember the Lakers. They had their team with Kobe and Shaq and all those guys, and they got beat by Ben Wallace and Tyshawn Prince, and yeah, they had some good. That was a good one there. Good thought on that one. Let's go back out to the phones. Welcome into the program. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob, it's Buckeye John.
John, what you got, man? How you doing?
Hey, good. How are you, sir?
Good.
How about the 1990 Cincinnati Reds, wire to wire? They sweep the mighty Oakland Athletics, led by Mark McGuire, Jose Canseco, and Ricky Henderson.
That's almost a deep cut. I like it though, but yeah, people didn't really give the Reds much of a chance, and the A's were loaded. You're absolutely right.
Yes, sir. All right, thanks, sir.
Appreciate it, buddy. Back out to the phones. 803-978-1832. Welcome into the program. Good afternoon.
How's it going, Rob? Bluegrass Sports Media.
Hey, buddy, you got an upset for us?
Yeah, I'd say probably the biggest upset was Kentucky getting beat by a trash Tennessee. Probably the biggest upset was Kentucky getting beat by a trash Tennessee team last night.
Oh, you mean hold on, slow down, hold on. You mean this one?
Chandler will come across the line. He'll just dribble the clock out, and now Tennessee is going to savor the last 10 seconds of this big win over the Kentucky Wildcats. Final score from Thompson Bowling Arena: Tennessee 76 and Kentucky 63.
That one last night?
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, terrible. Terrible. I'm embarrassed to be a Kentucky fan sometimes because if you go on like anywhere that Kentucky fans are, every time we lose a basketball game, it's always someone else's fault. And I will admit that as a Kentucky fan, we are probably the most excuse-making fan base besides Alabama. So I wanted to admit that on your show today. But no, really, probably the biggest upset I've seen, in a very long time happened not so long ago. Amanda Nunes recently just got knocked out for her UFC title, and she's probably the best woman MMA fighter ever. So that's probably the biggest upset I've ever seen. Actually watched.
Julianne Pena, who was the current champion, knocked her out.
Yeah. She was like a 12-1 or 12-1 favorite or something like that. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a good one. Yeah, Julianne Pena winning that one. No one gave her a chance. So yeah, there's that.
All right, Rob. Well, I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man. You have a great day. All right, quick break. When we come back, final segment of the rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. That wasn't really an upset, though. I mean, I thought that Arkansas is a good team. Final segment of the rundown, talking about the biggest upsets that you remember. Tyson Douglas is the big one that we have out there. Some folks talking about TCU over Clemson. TCU was a good team, though. They were a pretty good team. Justin says Alabama over Gonzaga in basketball, December the 4th. Yeah, Edwin's got a good point. Unranked over number one is always an upset. I completely buy into that. 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832 is the number to call if you want to join us on the rundown this afternoon on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Let's go out to the phones. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob, talking about upsets.
Sure.
Does that include college basketball?
Absolutely.
How about when Virginia lost to number 16?
Yeah, it was UMBC. Yeah.
Yeah, and the next year they won the championship.
Yeah. I mean, that Virginia team was really good, especially on the defensive end. So, yeah, that was –
yeah.
And the UMBC came out and shot threes all over them. It was kind of crazy.
Yeah, and there was a year where it was Florida Gulf Coast that went to the Final Eight, I think.
Yeah.
And that got the guy the job at Southern California. That he's long gone from there.
Yeah, he's long gone from there. But I mean, yeah, they were basically alley-ooping their way into the into the Elite Eight. Yeah, they were a good team. So yeah. Sometimes in basketball, you can take a basketball team that's full of veterans, and you have stability in the backcourt, and it all comes back down to can you play defense and shoot the three? And if you have a veteran team, man, you can knock some guys off. You really, really can.
Oh yeah. And I had a comment about the first part of your show. Who outside the SEC can win a championship?
No. It's Alabama and Georgia. I'm not giving the whole conference.
Okay. Alabama,
the idea
Georgia.
of they can win the whole thing. I mean, it's Alabama and Georgia, and then you got a bunch of fours, in my opinion.
Yeah. How about Southern Cal now?
With Caleb Williams, but you know what? That's fair. But the reality is that Lincoln Riley.
They're going to have an easier path there.
They'll have an easier path, but Lincoln Riley generally, to be able to compete with an Alabama or a Georgia, you're going to have a top flight defense. If you could score some points, that's great, but you're going to have to defensively be able to line up and smash them in the mouth. And I don't think that they have that capability on the defensive side of the ball. So,
and how about Oklahoma? Brent Venables bring that defense there.
Yeah, he had a lot of talent leave, but I don't know how much offense he's going to have. But I mean that's definitely in the mix. I like Oklahoma over Southern Cal.
Yeah, Ohio State. They're going to be there, and I think Clemson's going to be there. But I don't think Clemson's going to be there with DJ. I think Clemson might be there with Kate Klubnik.
Yeah, Klubnik. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think DJ's he's got a world to improve on from what he did last year. And a lot of it wasn't his fault. I understand the offensive line was terrible to start the year, and they had guys dropping the ball left and right. But still, at the end of the year, he still wasn't putting the ball on people.
Right.
I hope his finger and his knees better.
Hopefully he'll be good to go because, look, we've seen games where he was able to throw the ball effectively, but I remember the Boston College game and the game against Notre Dame 2 seasons ago. And he came out and threw the ball and threw it with zip and was able to throw it all over the field. And then last year, he looked like a completely different quarterback. He couldn't throw the ball.
It looked like he lost confidence.
Looks like he lost a lot. So, yeah, there's that too. But
And for the better part of the year, they weren't even running him at quarterback unless it was real short yardage situation.
And we don't know if he was hurt or not. And I'm not trying to hold up for him on that front.
He did
but
have surgery.
If you're injured, you can't really do all the things that you can do. But
he did have knee surgery, and they said he'd be back for the spring game.
But I also wonder too, sometimes with a lot of quarterbacks, if you have somebody behind you that can push you a little bit.
Yeah, he didn't have that.
And I don't think he had it last season, but I think he may have it this year. So, because for some reason, and Tyson Foreman, I always butcher that young man's name. If his mama's listening, she's going to yell at me. But I don't think the coaching staff really thought that he was.
He was a project.
I think he was a project, but I don't think they had enough confidence in him to give him the keys to the offense and let him go.
But, no, not to throw the ball.
Not to throw the ball. But I think that now with Klubnik potentially, and you've got Hunter Johnson there too, who is a guy that knows the Clemson system somewhat. I mean, that may be maybe it'll be a little bit different this year on the quarterback front. Maybe Coach Sweeney will have more of an option of, look, if Uiagalelei is not getting it done, we might as well throw.
There was no option last year. There just wasn't. I mean, he put Tyson in a couple of times, and they scored. They got a couple of field goals, but you could tell, that kid wasn't ready to run that. He was ready to play then. All right, man. Appreciate
it, man. Thanks a lot. Yeah, some good talk there about Clemson and how they head into the season. 803-978-1832. Talking about the biggest upsets that you remember. All kinds of stuff we've talked about today. Lots of calls today, and as always, I appreciate that. But you're always welcome to join the program at 803-978-1832. Of course, we've also got Lawton Swan of Clemson Sports Talk. He is the czar of Clemson Sports. He's going to be with us here shortly. He always... Stop looking at me, Swan. All right. He always brings the good stuff on his program, which is Clemson Sports Talk. Later on, as we go throughout the week here, tomorrow we're going to talk a little college baseball as the first games of the season get underway. I tell you what, man, the whole ESPN app thing, that is the greatest thing in the world during college baseball season. I mean, it really is. I end up watching college baseball games that are just way out there. I'll watch like the Citadel playing Foreman. I guess we can't go with Foreman now. The Citadel playing Wofford, whatever. I end up watching games that nobody cares about. I end up watching baseball games late into the night. College baseball season is so great. It really, really is. My bookcase of accountability, I think 5 SEC teams are going to make the College World Series. No one really wants to argue that against me either. It's not like people were beating down the phone lines. Hey, Rob's stupid on the college baseball front. I'm talking about just as far as big league talent that is on these 5 teams. There are 5 teams in the SEC that I think should possibly sail into the College World Series. Now, I don't think they may not all host, but there's going to be an SEC team or two that's going to work their way up through the bracket and into the College World Series. That's definitely going to happen. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. Don't forget, Lawton Swan. Stop looking at me, Swan. He's up next. I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. He's on Twitter at Clemson Sports. This is The Rundown. Thanks for checking us out on Fox Sports Radio 1400. All right, you guys rock, man. Appreciate y'all. New Rob and Jackpot show tonight. We'll see you later on.